and gentlemen, a paradigm shift has occurred. Well, in the Philippines at the very least. And no, I'm not talking about the general state of things, but rather with small cars. Now, I have said in the past that cars are getting better and better, and they continue to do so even at the most attractive price points. Now, if you're a consumer looking for a good deal, wanting to maximize your budget, whether you're a first-time car buyer or a veteran car buyer, this is, well, for more reasons than one, a three-way that you don't want to miss. This is the Honda Brio, the Kia Picanto, and the Toyota Wigo. Now, with so many cars out there, it's very hard to gather them all for a comparo, but in terms of popularity, these three do stand out. In fact, they cracked our top 40 list for most searched nameplates for the first half of 2020. So in terms of matchups, this is actually pretty important. Now, the Honda Brio wowed us back in 2019, especially the RS variant, which we reviewed. This is the VCVT. Now, it doesn't have as much chops as the RS variant, but it's still a looker nonetheless. Sure, it's a little bit more sedate, it doesn't have as much black plastics, but really, it's a less maarte car. It's a striking front, and the car looks, well, pretty aggressive when faced with its rivals. Shapely halogen reflectors and fog lamps help round out the look, and you also get still attractive looking set of wheels on the side that come at 14 inches on 65 series tires. Now, among the three, the Brio sits the lowest at 137 millimeters of ground clearance. Then towards the back, it's also good looking and clean. Not as busy as the front, but still enough to turn a few heads while it zooms past. Okay, I don't think it can go that fast, but it looks like it can. Now, hailing from the land of K-pop is the Kia Picanto with its tiger nose grille and really a very cute, attractive exterior. It is pretty well put together, and you have to admit it is one of the quirkiest things that you'll see on the road today. Softer than the Brio, it's more approachable in our opinion. Now, like the Brio, it has halogen reflectors too and fog lamps down below. You get that ever quirky tiger nose windshield along the 14-inch wheels and 65 series tires. Potholes and bumps won't be too much of a problem thanks to the 151 millimeters of ground clearance. I quite like the rear of the Picanto. It's my personal preference along with the clean lines with the C-shaped tail lamps, though the reverse lights are down below, which is odd given this vehicle's size. You know, to be honest, the more I look at it, the more it kind of resembles a little Tyke's car. You know, the red and yellow one? Kind of like our matchup today. Where did this sun come from? My good grief. And last but certainly not least, from the #1 car manufacturer in the Philippines, the pound-for-pound king, Toyota, this is their Tyke, the Toyota Wigo. The busiest of the bunch, the Wigo has a full TRD S body kit that includes the lip, side skirts, spoiler, and rear diffuser along with a total of 10, yes, 10 TRD logos found all throughout the car. Definitely busy and, dare we say, looking like it's ready to fight the Brio and the Picanto. It has the best lighting of the bunch with halogen projectors along with fog lamps found down below, 14-inch wheels that are two-tone, and a busy rear end with clear tail lamps. Though I've said in the review, I'm not really the biggest fans of the clear tail lamps, kind of like fake glasses. But if that's your thing, hey, you do you. Now we get it, style is definitely subjective. There are some guys out there like Earl who prefer the Brio. Other guys like Joey want something edgier like the Wigo. I myself, if I was gonna get a small car, I want something a little classier, a little timeless, and something with a Red Dot Design Award too. Taking everything into consideration, we're gonna give the bronze to the Wigo, we're gonna give the silver to the Brio, and we're gonna give the gold to the Kia Picanto. Hey man, if you can look classy and timeless without really trying, well, that's really the epitome of cool. Now, in terms of power, this 3-cylinder in the Wigo is at the bottom of the list, followed by these two 4-cylinders, the Picanto and the Brio. But the Brio has the highest output and is coupled with the most advanced transmission, which is a CVT. So on power alone, this guy will win it. However, if we're talking about fuel efficiency, that's where it gets a little complicated. See, this guy will actually do pretty well in the city, even better when it clears up. But the Picanto will sail past the Brio on the highway. But if you want the best of both worlds, you gotta look through the 3-cylinder. So on fuel efficiency, we're gonna give it to the Wigo. Now, sitting in the Brio, you definitely feel like you're in a bigger car than you're actually in. Spacious in the rear with great amounts of headroom and legroom. The Brio, pretty great in all aspects, but friggin' amazing is the 258 liters of space with the rear seats up, which grows to 710 with the back seats down. Now, the dashboard is equally as edgy as the exterior of the car. Makes you kind of look at it and think that if you slap it hard enough, you might actually cut yourself. There are some nice durable plastics around, along with glossy black plastics here, with a 7-inch touchscreen infotainment system that unfortunately does not have a reverse camera. So at the very least, you learn how to make tansya. Now, at the back of the Kia, you get an okay amount of space. The rear seats are the smallest of the bunch, not many toys back there either, but the seats are 60/40 folding, so you don't need to ditch all your passengers if you need to get more stuff. Now, not much in the back also, but you do get quite a bit of luggage space at 200 liters with the rear seats up. Now, in the Kia Picanto, I'd say that this is probably the most elegant interior and dash amongst all the cars that we've assembled here today. Not a lot, but still. Yes, I do understand that there are still a lot of plastics, in fact, predominantly plastics up here, and the cloth interior here is nothing spectacular. But it does have a floating infotainment system that doubles as your reverse camera, and it also has Android and Apple capabilities. So really, that's not bad on tech. It's a small, chic car, but the refinement is really one segment above. That I like. Now, space in the Toyota is knocking futs. First off, you get about 150 liters of cargo space with the bench up, and then that grows to about 420 when it's down. The legroom, well, it's like Toyota borrowed the machine from Doofenshmirtz, either a Spacinator or a Shrinkinator, that makes you a bit smaller when you get in, because the legroom is just unexplainable. How do they do this in such a small car? Now, Toyota is known for making cars that last for a very long time, durability, and that is very much the case here with the Wigo. Durability and simplicity. You got plastics that are durable, even hard plastics here that are also durable. Not a lot of gloss except for in the center. So really very simple interior, simple air, simple gauges, simple trip computers, simple steering wheel. A little bit more tech when it comes to the infotainment system that doubles as your reverse camera and has Android and Apple capabilities. Now, some might say that this is down on the other two in this comparison, but it's also actually up on some areas. Like, for example, it has a push start system. While none of them have passive entry, at the very least this has a push start. I've got to admit, the interior of the Brio really does have a lot of appeal. Its, however, lack of features make it kind of shy for 2020. The Wigo, on the other hand, has got a lot of space and great tech. It's just that the interior is geared more towards the durable side. Now, when you're talking about the Kia Picanto, well, it's got all that refinement. Sure, it doesn't have all that space, but really fit and finish is top notch, so top marks will go to the Picanto. In terms of safety, all have dual front airbags and ABS. It's pretty neck and neck, though an edge would have to go to the Toyota Wigo and the Kia Picanto for their 4-star ASEAN NCAP rating when it comes to adult and child occupant safety. The Brio, on the other hand, has still not yet been tested at the time of filming. Oh, and one thing I must add, that the Brio eschews one thing and one thing only: ISOFIX tethers. And now, yes, I do understand it's a pandemic and times are difficult, but what would a Comparo be without a little pointless competition? Hmm? if there's one thing that Honda does well and does so with passion, is that they create great, fun cars to drive that are small. I mean, after all, that's where they started, creating smaller cars with great driving dynamics at an affordable price. Now, the Brio is basically a distillation of all of those years of experience that Honda has had with smaller cars. Now, compared to the other two, the steering here is actually very light and the chassis feels planted. Now, not only does that translate to great maneuverability, but it also does very well during low-speed maneuvers or getting in and out of tight parking spots. However, it might be a problem when you're trying to back out of a spot because this thing doesn't have a reverse camera like the other two. So, It's surprisingly stable though. Whether you're in the city or in the highway, man, it's really planted. And it's very responsive too, since it does have a CVT. So when you bury your foot, the 1.2 liter powerhouse, well, really, as best as it can, lets loose. Now, the Kia Picanto returns very composed driving dynamics. This is a global model, which means you'll see a lot of them plying the roads in Europe. The chassis has definitely got to be strong enough to stand the test of time and the higher speeds, which also probably explains why the fuel economy of this guy is actually better than the other two on the highway. Now, in terms of acceleration, this guy's definitely in the middle of the two, right in between the Brio and the Wigo. But you have to understand, these guys are not hot hatches. Drive them properly and you should be okay. Now, I will say this about the Picanto. It's not as, I guess, kulit as the other two cars, but really when you're in it, you really feel much more relaxed and you want to keep on driving. The steering is light also, but it just feels heftier. You know, it's not as flickable as the other two, but definitely much more comfortable, and it gives you confidence when you're driving this automobile. And going over potholes and bumps, it's actually pretty reasonable. Amazing, actually, for a small car. Now, inside Toyota's little hatchback, the Wigo, it's actually quite surprising because it's lighter in some areas that you don't expect it to be light and heavier in some areas that you don't expect it to be heavy. For example, the steering. It's actually pretty heavy to get it going, but not as heavy naman as a pickup truck that you don't expect it to be that heavy. The weird thing is that regardless of its weight, it actually feels darn good to drive because the responsiveness that you get, well, it's one of its high points, really. Yeah! The smallest of the three engines is here inside the Wigo, and its returns are really just about okay. What do you expect? It's a 3-cylinder, right? When you're at speed and you're on the highway, it's actually pretty good to get going. It's in stop-and-go traffic where it's actually a bit of a problem. See, it's geared towards fuel economy. So the transmission, well, it keeps the engine revs low so that your fuel economy savings are high. So it's not that responsive. So really, you'd want it a little bit more responsiveness, really, but for traffic savings, I mean, you can't go wrong, now can you? While it may not be the comfort, it's definitely the space that you get inside the Wigo. The massive amount of cargo space that you have and passenger space behind the front passenger and the driver is really unbelievable for such a small car. It's really, I don't know where they pull it out from, really, I don't. Now, driving all of these guys around town on the highway was pretty good, but among the cars tested, I found myself enjoying the most was the Brio, followed by the Picanto, and then the Wigo. Now, when it comes to small cars, you can pretty much expect good amounts of ride comfort, visibility, and handling. But the most empowering thing, well, the power. So without a doubt, the Brio gets gold, the Picanto gets silver, and the Wigo gets bronze. Now, pricing and value for money is definitely going to be a topic that you're going to be talking about when you're discussing cars of this size. So let's get to it. The most expensive would be the Kia Picanto, coming in at 745,000 Philippine pesos. Second in line would be the Wigo, but it's actually the Brio if it were in the RS variant. This is actually the VCVT, so this comes in at 658,000 Philippine pesos. The difference between the two of them, maybe cloth accents inside and wheels basically outside, but the fit and finish inside is actually the same. So you're down to the Wigo, which comes in at 700,000 Philippine pesos, and that has got to be your best well-rounded value for money right there. So you're getting a top-of-the-line spec car for 700,000 Philippine pesos. It'll stand the test of time from the #1 car company in the Philippines. So gold, silver, and bronze. Talking about your exterior, interior, power and performance, not that much power, fuel efficiency, design overall, amenities. There are so many things to consider, but I'll tell you this, you'd be proud to own any of these models here, as with the manufacturers, if you were to take any of their products home. But for us, for our money, our choice would be front and center, the Kia Picanto.